Hello.
Right, quick update on solicitor stuff. I'm still waiting for a few more to get back to me,
hmm
but so far nobody is prepared to take it, and the general view is you're out of time for it
How could they possibly think that?
because if you wish to bring a complaint about your education, um, you should have done it before while you were under 21.
And they know this.
Yes,
That they know exactly my age, right?
I've told them you're 32, aren't you?
Y- yeah. And
Yeah.
they
Said that will
know
make you
that
out
I
of
was
time
not
for it.
told about my Asperger's afterwards, which actually brings it on them and not me. Yes. You told them about this.
Yeah, the point they're making is, in law, you are outside a time limit for it. I've got a couple more people going to get
But
back to me,
that's the
but
whole point why I'm suing them.
yes, and that's the point why you can't sue them, they're saying.
So the point I am suing them for is the point I can't sue them for. Is what you're basically saying, and you're agreeing, and you would rather
I'm
take.
not agreeing, I'm telling you what they're telling me.
Yeah. Well, you're not exactly fighting them on this issue. You're not exactly saying on my side of this. Enough,
Well,
in my opinion. Really,
um,
you're not making it
I,
obvious that I am literally a disabled individual who has been massively inconvenienced by this, who has literally been told after the time I could sue them for has
I've
been
explained
reached.
that,
You're not
and their
really.
point is that the law has a time limit on this, and you're outside it.
Mm, yeah, I don't accept that answer, and you shouldn't neither. If you
Well, I
intend to.
can't not accept the law.
If the law is about literally them getting away with something after identifying it, how would I have known previously? Right, when I'm 21, right? How would I have been with the knowledge to sue them?
You may or may not have been. I don't think that's
There
the
was
issue.
no way I
Yeah.
would have had the knowledge before the diagnosis.
I get what you're saying. You didn't realise they'd done this until you were
Yeah.
after 21.
So why aren't we fighting this? Why are you so intent to give up? Why aren't you saying there's obviously a logical fallacy here? There's something obviously wrong about how this is set up. If I can't sue them about them not telling me when I'm like 24, 25 before they even tell me, what kind of sense does that make?
I'm not saying it makes sense. I'm saying that's what the law is.
Well, then who do we talk to about changing that law or telling people?
Well,
I mean, what exactly are our
if you wish
options
to
here?
change the law, I suggest you start with your MP. You're not going to get anywhere with it. The law is what the law is.
Yeah,
There are a couple more people coming back to me, and I'll talk to them.
but
And see if they've got another view on it. But so far,
you don't seem
the
to
view I'm getting
understand
from it is,
my.
if you wish to bring a case concerning a failure to get the correct education, there are time limits on it, and you're outside those time limits.
Again, it was not my problem. It was their problem for not telling me. It has always been their problem. It is not my problem they didn't tell me about my Asperger's until after they identifying the issue. This is absolutely not my problem. I don't know why
Well,
you're
I
saying
think
it's
it's
my
actually
problem
your
when
problem.
it's. I don't know why you're saying
That's
it's
what
my
the law
problem
says,
when
and
it's
they're not going
literally
to take
their
us up so
fault.
far.
Right. Is it okay? Is it my fault that it took them 25 until I was 25, 24 before telling me? Is it my fault? Did I do
I
something
don't
wrong?
know. Okay, just hang on a second. Can we just rewind a bit?
Yeah.
Because one of the things I'm not getting in this is, where are you trying to get with this process?
I'm trying to get closure on the actual issue. I have been damaged
Okay,
massively
okay.
over this.
What does closure on the issue mean to you?
It means getting justice for this actual event. And
Okay,
by
but
that,
what does
the
justice
own
look like?
the justice implies that the wrongdoers make actual efforts to make right what they put wrong, basically.
And what would those efforts be?
Well, considering they are unable to go back in time, considering they cannot undo the social isolation and all the other damages to my life, that compensation would be in the form of financial means.
So you want money. What are you going to do with the money?
I will pay for a psychiatrist. I will be able to start my own little app idea I've told you about before. I will be able to better my life in various ways. I will be able to get the social
Okay,
care
no,
I actually need.
that's
So,
I'm getting this yes, now you're helping me there. So what you're trying, where you want to get to,
Mm-hmm.
and can we just forget about who's wrong and whose fault it is?
No, I would like the
Hang on,
answer to the
time being,
question. Is it my fault they didn't tell me? But you can continue.
Hang on, just a second. You'd like to get better social contact. You'd like to be able to choose your own form of medical care, and you'd like to start a business to work on your app.
Yeah.
These things would help you move forward.
Those things will definitely help me move forward in my
I
life.
think we should
Unfortunately,
start
the
looking at
social
those
care I have available to me now do not do those things. So
Okay, well, but looking for those things is something I think we should carry on looking at. Now, at the moment, it appears, and I may be wrong, and I've still got more people, that solicitors aren't prepared to take your case on because it's out of time.
no, I don't know why they
Also,
got
hang
that
on, just one other
information.
thing.
I don't
It's
know.
your contention that somebody has failed in delivering your education.
Yeah.
That might not be the case.
It is absolutely the case. They did not send
do
me
you
to
know
the
that?
appropriate school. I know that because there's other people around me with Asperger's who got sent to other schools specialised to their needs. I did not receive that.
How do you know that the school you sent to wasn't specialised for Asperger's?
Because they literally didn't know I had Asperger's for a start.
Okay. I get where you're coming from. I think the point you've got to bear in mind is, two things actually. It's out of time.
No,
so you're
I don't
probably
accept
not
that
gonna get
point,
anywhere with
but continue.
Secondly, as far as I can see, your contention is that the school should have known you had Asperger's and done something about it.
They should have identified it with the general issues I showed in my
Well,
school.
fine,
I've already
now,
gone through this.
I'm not a lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure that's the school's responsibility.
Is it
So
not?
even-
Okay, then
even if
whose responsibility is it?
Probably your doctors.
Probably my doctor's. Now, did I see a doctor when I was in school?
Don't know.
No, nothing to do with them.
Okay.
So
that's
tell
not the school's
me,
fault.
it was the doctor's fault who did not see me, yet the school did not make any arrangement to see a doctor?
So your case is that because the school didn't arrange for you to see a doctor, they're at fault.
Well, should I sue the doctor who hasn't even been in the position to see me? Should I do that? Should I do that instead?
The point I'm trying to make is
No,
there
the
might
point
not be
is I
anybody
need to
who's at
find
fault.
out who is at fault here. Whether it's the school, the doctors, whoever else, the social care. I need someone to be held accountable for this massive failure. So who am I suing?
I don't know. I don't think you're saying
You don't know. You don't know. You're trying to divert the blame. You don't want me to sue the education system because that's literally the people responsible, but you'd rather have me give up or find out
I'd like
another
you to try and
20
move
years
on
to divert the blame to someone else. It's
and
always
work
someone
on
else's
things like
fault
your app and
somehow.
stuff like that.
So I didn't hear you because you literally started talking when I was still talking. But yeah.
Okay, no, I'm not stopping you suing anybody. I'm just saying, as far as I can see, at the moment, you don't have a case to sue anybody.
Then who is
I will
responsible?
continue
So no,
looking for that.
because you're saying it's not the responsibility of the school, and you're saying I've run out of time. Which is it?
Both.
Both.
Well, hang on,
So it wasn't
hang
the
on,
responsibility.
just a second.
Whose
I'm not-
responsibility was it?
Hang on just a second. I don't know for a fact that it's not the responsibility of the school, but I would be very surprised if a school had a responsibility for dealing with a health condition.
To identify learning disabilities.
Yes, I would be very surprised if a school had a responsibility for that.
For identifying learning disabilities within a school, you don't think it was at all
You
up
would
to the
go
school?
to a school with a diagnosis of learning disabilities. They wouldn't do the diagnosis.
And when they show difficulties within the school, what would you suggest would be the course of action? Just leave me to my own devices and have me not being helped at all? I don't see why you're defending them so badly. I don't see why it is so important to you to divert the blame or say give up Chris. Why aren't you taking my
Fine,
side?
if you want to blame the school, that's okay by me.
No,
what
I mean,
doing is
I'm
trying
blaming
to
the school
stop you
unless you
wasting
can give
time
me
on
an
something that's
actual...
going nowhere.
You can blame. I'm blaming the school until you can give me an actual reasonable argument. It's someone else's fault. Because so far I've not heard any reasonable arguments. It's not the school's fault.
Okay,
I've
well,
heard
you might be right.
excuse
I
after
wasn't there. I don't know
excuse.
exactly what they did. However, at the moment, everybody I've spoken to says you're out of time for suing the school.
Again, not my fault. Their fault. When was I identified? Was it my fault? I was only identified at 24, 25. Was that my fault?
Nope.
Should I have said, hey, I have Asperger's when I didn't know I had Asperger's? Should I have said
No.
that?
No, obviously you couldn't.
No.
The problem is, because you couldn't and you didn't, you're still out of time.
So, whose fault is it?
Nobody's.
So, again, it's not the fault of the school for not identifying my issue, and yet I'm also out of time. You can't have it both ways.
Okay, well, maybe look at it the other way. Maybe it is the fault of the school,
Yeah.
but you're out of time and you can't sue them for it.
And again, you just said maybe, as in you're trying to come up with arguments for me to let this go. You literally just flip-flopped on your own argument there.
No,
Which,
I don't know, I have flip-flopped. I've said if you think it's the school's fault, I say I wasn't there, maybe it was, okay, I'll give you the
then
benefit
whose
of that.
fault it is?
However,
Find out whose fault it is, and I'll go and
okay,
sue
let's
them.
put it another way, even stronger. If it is the school's fault, you're out of time and you can't sue them.
I can most certainly sue them, because the point still stands that they had to friggin' identify me, which is the whole premise of me suing them.
Okay, what you would do in these circumstances is you put the case into court, you say I want to sue these people,
Yeah.
and the court goes, we're not accepting it, you're out of time.
No.
They won't even look at it.
That is unacceptable. That is not justice. What am I meant to do with that? How could I possibly accept that? You might as well say, if they found out who shot JFK, well, it's out of time now. We can't do anything about it. I'm sure he's long dead, of course. But if that was the case,
There aren't time limits on that,
well, why is there time limit on this?
because there is.
Because there is. That's a
time limits on a lot of
terrific
civil
argument, that is.
It's a civil matter, not a criminal matter, and civil matters have time limits on them.
This is a criminal matter.
No, it's not.
How is that not?
A crime hasn't been committed, it's a civil matter.
It's a crime because they
No,
literally robbed me of my education. If they say had a child who they didn't educate whatsoever, what kind of matter would that be?
That's a civil matter in the eyes of the law, not a criminal matter.
Well, that's a stupid differential. But nonetheless,
I mean, there's a
this is
different standard of
absolutely
proof, there's different
unacceptable either
procedures.
way. Can you actually understand my viewpoint here? Can you actually
Yeah, I can.
understand why I could not possibly let that go? Do you understand I have no alternatives?
Well, if you want to carry on that, that's fine.
I mean, I literally have no alternatives. Give me an actual reasonable alternative to better my life, and I might listen to that. Because so far, it's just sit there and accept your literal stagnant existence, and yeah, I know those people who wronged you massively can get away with this, but basically, F you, Chris. There's nothing you could do about the fact that you got away with this.
Well, there's nothing you can probably do to sue people over it.
Why not?
But as I say, I'm waiting for a couple more people. Well, if you manage to find a lawyer who wants to take it forward, great. I'm not getting involved
Yeah,
with that.
absolutely. If we
People
find that,
download
I really would go on board with that. But literally, you don't seem to be arguing my side of this very effectively, in my opinion. You're just like, yeah, I accept that issue. I'll tell Chris to give up. Instead of
No,
you
I said I'll
arguing,
pass
this
on
is
information to Chris, which I've done.
yeah.
So
Instead
the
of
couple
you
more people get
arguing,
back to me,
yeah,
if I
this
get
is
a different
Chris's
view, then
only
I'll tell
actual
you.
approach.
But at the moment, it looks like it's not going to go anywhere in terms of a solicitor being prepared to take the case forward for you.
Well, that's outrageous. How could that possibly be? How could they possibly say that the schools have done everything that was required of them when they literally did not do that?
They can
And
take
not
it
only that,
on
but you
any
accept
case,
it.
whether they wish to take it forward or not. They don't have to take a case forward.
Well, yeah, they don't have to take the case forward, but the reasoning they're not taking the case forward is totally without merit.
Well, I think most solicitors would say if a case is without a time limit, it's not without merit to decline to take that case forward.
And yet you're telling me that the specific reasoning was that the schools have done everything that was required of them.
No,
That
no,
was
I didn't
that
say
was
that.
what you told me.
No, I didn't.
Oh, what
I
did you
said-
tell me then?
I said I doubted if a school was responsible for medical diagnosis.
Yeah, you said
I
that,
didn't
but
say-
literally.
That's what I said, and I also said that actually it's out of a time limit, and at the moment it looks like you can't sue somebody for a failure in the education process if it's out of time.
Again, not my fault. Their fault. They're responsible for that timeline. In fact, they should be sued for that reason alone, for trying to avoid this after the fact that I could sue them, intentionally shielding themselves from legal action. That should be a criminal act. Yes.
Well, it's not a criminal act.
Well, that's an act of
Civil.
conspiracy to divert justice, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, that's your view. Say all the solicitors I've spoken to aren't taking that view.
Well, that's very convenient for the likes of everyone else who would help me.
Well, as I say, let's wait till the last two come in, and then I think one of the things we probably need to do is sit around a table and have a chat about this, which probably won't be till the COVID thing's gone, because we can't all get in the same room together.
Yeah, another
And with
conveniently
people from,
placed position
your
to not
social
actually
worker
help
and
me
your care
immediately.
people to talk about what we can do to go forward at that point, if it looks like this is going nowhere.
Again, we've had discussions about what we can do to move forward. There's literally no other options.
Well, they may have options they can suggest.
Again, what are the options? Because I think we've already had like two or three.
We need to talk to them to do that, but
I think we've had 2 or 3 different meetings about that exact thing, and they have come up with nothing. So how could you possibly say that we're going to come up with alternatives when they've not been alternatives in the past? And this literally is the only way I can get closure on the actual issue. How else will I get closure? How else will I get financial compensation? How else will I get the actual help? How else will I get the actual help I need?
Well, I think two things you need to bear in mind there is the help you need and the help you want may not be the same things.
It definitely is, because once again you're going to take the position of the establishment to say, yeah, this is the care we've said Chris needs. I mean, it's obviously ineffective, seeing as though there's been evidence to the contrary, like he's already gone through, talking shop. He's obviously depressed about his situation rather than a chemical imbalance, so obviously medication is out. But everything else, but yeah, you're willing to take their viewpoint all the time, and we're just meant to sit back and accept it. It's never my position that is being fought for here. It always seems to be, settle for this, Chris, settle for this.
No,
I'm not choosing the settle.
But I'm also going to tell you whether I think it's going to go anywhere or not. So, at the moment, where I'm at and what I'm doing is there's a couple more people to get back to me.
Mm-hmm.
I will speak to them. I will see if anybody will take your case forward. If it appears from the conversation I've had that nobody's likely to do that, then I'll be coming back to you and saying, sorry Chris, I can't get anybody to do that for you. Which I'm not saying at this point, I'm saying it's probably going that way, but I haven't got there yet. And at that juncture, I think there's also your NHS complaint, see what comes out of that. And at that juncture, then I think we need to sit around the table and go through with what is available.
Again, which is basically nothing.
And just try and look at getting something together from that to help you move forward.
But you're not willing to entertain the the bill idea I came up with, is send the actual people responsible a bill, and whether or not they pay it, fight it legally, or reject it means I take them to court over the bill, which is a new matter rather than the old matter, which is renewing the whole idea.
If you want to take them to court, you will have to pay a solicitor to do that.
Again, I'm not going to be able to do that. That's an unacceptable position. I am merely an individual without the means to do that. Therefore, they have to give me free representation.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they actually do. That is how a just society would work for people who cannot afford such a thing.
You aren't automatically entitled to free legal aid.
You do when they can't afford it and you're going to court.
No.
That is literally the point.
Not in a civil case.
Again, it doesn't matter if it's a civil case. It still is meant to be represented, no matter what.
You suing the council is a civil case, not a criminal one.
Well, they need to give me representation, because if I was a typical person, the council literally knocked over half my home. What? I'm not able to get any justice for that? That's just allowed? That's absurd.
It would be a criminal act to destroy your property. So you would get, if you deserved it, you would get legal aid in those circumstances. If you met the criteria.
It really is not distinguished enough. I don't see why not those two things are the exact same. It is a wrong that is done to one person. It is obviously a wrong that is done to me. No difference.
Okay, well, like I say, wait till the other solicitors have come back. If you want to send a bill to the council, I can't stop you. I'll help you draft it if you want. I don't think it'll go anywhere, but if you want to do that, that's fine.
Again, if they reject it, take them to court. If they pay it, great. If they take me to court, fine.
We can all get, when we've got outcomes from those things, then I think we should all sit together around the table with your carers and your social workers and look at what is available and how we can maximise the benefits of that to you.
I think we've already gone over this. I mean, didn't you contact the social worker for this exact same reasoning?
Yeah.
And they refused to make any changes?
Yep.
Didn't we already
they
discuss
said
with
your care
JME
package
about
can't
this
be changed.
exact same situation?
Yeah, well...
And did they refuse? And did they not make any changes?
You can't. You can only use your care package for care. You can't use it for legal complaints against other people.
Well, I'm not using it for legal complaints. I was talking about getting psychological assistance.
It's possible your care package could be adjusted to give you more care things that would help you.
And again, the fact that I've been robbed from my education, we can't reassess my care based upon the fact I was essentially taken to the wrong school.
Well, I think your care has been assessed based on where you're at now in your current position.
Well, I don't think they quite understand me, do they?
If you want a care review, we can ask for that.
I have asked for that. It's not happened.
I'll check when you had your last care review, and we can put.
And will people be making the arguments I've been making over people?
This incident while the COVID crisis is on.
Because here's the thing, like I'm obviously like forgetful and not in the right mindset to keep track of this stuff. Nobody else seems to say this. I don't have any parents and whatnot fighting in my corner for my issues, for my care. So basically, you're relying upon the memory of someone who is not emotionally, mentally, or even physically there at times to argue cases about my care, and they're like, well, he didn't mention this, and this, so I guess, in fact, we should even lower his care.
It's possible.
Yeah, what on earth is going on when that's the system? Obviously, I have difficulties. Obviously, I have so many disabilities and disadvantages that aren't being taken in any way considered.
Well, I think your care package should have, and from what I've seen, does take consideration of your social care needs.
It does not! I have been spent in social isolation this entire time! And don't you say I have options available to me when those options are not at all acceptable.
I'm afraid
there has to be methods of
about giving everybody what they want just because they want it. There has to be.
It's not about giving me what I want because I want it. It's about giving me what I need because I need it. Why? Again, you're taking the side of everything away from Chris rather than we're going to push everything we can to help Chris. Why is that the position you seem to be taking?
I'm not doing that. Right, okay, hang on. Right, well, can we just close certain bits down so we know where we're going? Right, so solicitor-wise, I've got a couple more to get back to me, and then I'll get back to you when I've got a definitive answer on that. Okay, so that's that question closed for the time being. Right, we're still waiting on the stuff from Ardash, so we've got to wait till that comes through. Do you want your care package reviewed?
Yes, most certainly.
Okay.
I've asked for this. I have asked for this in the past. Why hasn't it been done?
Well, it should have been. I'm not sure it has.
Then who is responsible for not listening to me?
Well, sorry, hang on. They will review their care package. They will take a professional view of what is appropriate for you. Now, I will check when it was last reviewed. I strongly recommend that you wait till people can see you. And at the moment, people aren't going out to see people to do care packages, so it'll all be done on paperwork. So I wouldn't do it till the COVID situations become far more less restrictive.
Mm-hmm. As always.
And you still you think you want to send a bill to North Links?
I mean, that's literally the only option that's available to me if you're saying none of the recent
So,
lawyers are
I'm
willing
saying
to.
so far nobody said yes,
Yeah,
and it looks as if they're not going to. But I haven't said to you nobody has said yet because I'm still waiting for a couple more people to get back to me.
which kind of indicates they're just ignoring me, quite honestly.
Well, some of them will go. Yeah, some people do. Some people. Listen, I make calls. Everybody doesn't get back to me always. Sometimes they do. Sometimes most of the time they
Yeah,
do.
but
sometimes they don't.
there's an amount of time before you say they're obviously not going to get back to you.
Yeah, I'd give it a couple of weeks.
I do not see why this is so difficult to get such the minimum effort from every single side. Right here, we're gonna. You said we're gonna do the care package review, which
Yeah.
means I have to argue every single point rather than having my support workers on my side to say, "Oh, remember this, Chris? Yes, we'll write down that. Yes, you obviously
if
got
we're
this
gonna do
problem
that,
too.
I'm
Should we
quite-
look into
to
more
argue your
problems you
points.
might actually have?" It's never that. It's always 100% on me, and everyone else is just sort of around, like
Okay, no,
hoping
I'm
I'll
happy to argue
forget.
your points, Chris. I'll do that.
Do you know my points?
I don't know all of them at the moment.
Then
And I'm not going to go through them with you now because when we come to do that, I'll come to you a little while beforehand and we'll sit down and go through it and I'll make notes.
again, that's in the current situation. That might not be enough. Maybe it's obvious I have these difficulties. Maybe you should come to me and says, "Do you have this difficulty, Chris? That seems evident to your behaviour." It says, "Well, yes, no."
I'm not quite sure what you mean there.
Right. I'm obviously showing signs of irritation or social isolation or depression and whatnot. You come to me and say, "You're showing these signs. Do you think you might have this issue?" It says, "Well, yes, that sounds like consistent to my behaviours or mental thinking and whatever else." Again, if you don't do that, it's going to be left out, and I'm going to constantly be left without the actual care I need.
I'm not a clinician. I don't do diagnoses.
Well, maybe we should get a clinician who could do a
Well,
diagnosis.
absolutely, yeah. No, I think that's a good point. You know, get a clinician to make sure. I mean, when did you last see a doctor?
I
It was about
can't.
6 months ago, wasn't it?
I mean, I saw a GP literally about the psychiatrist thing.
Well, I think it'd be worth checking on your diagnoses.
Yeah, I do too. I can't do that. Are you?
No,
Are you
no,
going to
I
expect
can't do
me?
that either. Doctor needs to do that.
Okay. Are you going to expect me to get run up this information to ask
No,
people
I'm
to do
expecting
this?
I'm expecting an appointment with a doctor who will, look at your notes and check your diagnoses haven't changed.
It's not really changed. It's up to date. It's more understanding about my situation.
Well, your diagnosis is your diagnosis.
Yeah.
You've either got
And
something or
apparently,
you haven't.
well, apparently I must have been like 24 to 25 before suddenly I had Asperger's, right?
Well, maybe you think, yeah, people change, but I'm talking about today, not 10 years ago.
I'm talking about today. And today, literally, I'm going under mental stress because of what the freaking education system has failed to provide me. And you must hear the frustration and the anger and the
Absolutely, yeah,
increased
absolutely.
agitation I'm continuously living with. And you're like, "No, well, yeah, they cause major emotional, mental damages, but it's fine. It's fine. We'll defend them from Chris's justice. We'll make sure that doesn't happen, because Chris should not be defended, but the establishment 100% should be. Because
No,
we
I'm not saying
all
that.
hail the establishment who does my paychecks,
I
because
have to
obviously
say,
your
right,
accounts
two
for work
things.
and shit. Nothing is done on my behalf, in a sense. No one looks into these issues in the same way. I'm literally a vulnerable person who is not being provided that assistance. And nobody seems to mind, because it doesn't affect them.
Well, actually, I think you're wrong there. I think a lot of people are doing a lot of work for you. It may
The
not be
bare
working
minimum.
like, but they are. So I think that's not fair on people.
Oh, I
But
think it's
you've
fair
got
to
to
say
look
it's
at
the
it,
bare minimum. They're not looking into changing the care plan. They're literally fighting me to change the care plan. They see my situation and they're like, yeah, Chris is okay in this situation. I mean, we can see he's getting more and more agitated to do with his situation, but it's not worth checking up on or anything like that. He's fine. One day he will snap emotionally or mentally, and we'll just say it's his fault, won't we?
I don't think anybody's saying it's your fault, Chris.
Well then, nobody's doing anything to prevent such a thing from occurring. So how could you say they're doing everything that's expected of them instead of the bare minimum?
Oh, no, you've got a point there about the bare minimum. But then that's what society generally provides.
It's not good enough. Literally, I don't feel anyone cares enough to actually look into these issues. I'm obviously got these difficulties. They know I can't express those difficulties, and they're like, it's fine. Just let Chris suffer.
Well, I've not heard anybody saying it's fine.
Well, that's the result of their actions.
Okay. Right, I think we've gone as far as we can with this today. I've said what my plan is going forward. With the COVID situation, doctors aren't going to come out and see you at the moment. Social workers aren't going to come out and see you at the moment. So you're going to have to wait till it eases down to get reassessed. You get your plan reassessed. I'll carry on with the solicitor bit. I'll get back to you when I've got a definite answer on that. And if you want to send a letter off to sue the council, you can.
With assistance, of course. I can't just write it in friggin' sporastic ink and expect them to understand it with like my dyslexia and everything else. And I need to know like the amounts that would be relevant to the damages and so on and so forth. But no actual assistance of that. You're just saying, oh yeah, you could send off a letter.
Well, I can write the letter for you.
Again.
It'll have to come from you, but I can write it on your behalf.
Again, I don't know the amounts. I don't know who I'm writing it to exactly. I don't know the proper wording to make it as legal as possible.
Well, I don't know that either.
Well, then why would you be assisting me to do the thing that apparently you're not qualified to assist me with? See, you're just waiting for me to fail here.
Sorry, hang on a minute, Chris. There are two ways of doing jobs like that. One is you pay a solicitor to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The other is you do it yourself.
Which again, unable to pay a solicitor, you are well aware of that. It is an absolute unwinnable situation you are well aware of.
In which case, it's going to be done in a non-solicitor, non-legal way.
Well, again, that's the only option available to me, but you're waiting for that to fail so you can say, oh, well, you've already tried that, Chris, you should give up.
I think it's very unlikely you have a case against North Links.
I have a very good case if there was any actual justice, but continue.
But that does rather depend on... At the moment, there is no proved neglect or failure of anybody to deliver an appropriate care package to you.
There's plenty of proof. I went to a school for people with obviously difficulties, did not get identified. My identification came at 24, 25. The literal first time it was ever mentioned was in college. The literal time they mentioned Asperger's throughout my schooling never happened. I have school records from those days.
I get what you're saying. That's your view.
No, that's my evidence.
But it's not a proved fact in a court.
It's a very proved fact in the court.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Okay, what courts proved that?
What courts proved what? Because you're just saying, what evidence do I have? I just said over all the evidence I have. They literally did not identify my Asperger's.
Yeah, that evidence has not been accepted by any court.
I mean, that's why we're going to court to have that done.
The problem you've got is you're out of time.
Again, not my problem, their problem, their fault. They should be sued additionally for avoiding that time.
Okay. Well, I think we're sort of going around in circles on this one now. So
yeah, you wouldn't want to actually open up that possibility.
So I will get back to you when the final solicitors have got to me, and if one of them comes with a plan to do something, that's great. If not, then we'll look at care reviews And if you want to draft a letter, or if you want me to help you draft a letter to it's North Links, isn't it? Saying, you're going to sue them, then I'll help you do that.
It's not really suing them, it's sending them a bill for the damages.
Okay, if you're going to
If
send
they
that
take
bill,
me
I'll
to
help
court
you do
over that, that's plenty fine.
Okay. Good day for today. I'll talk to you again when the solicitors get back to me.
When are you going to call me next?
When the solicitors have got back to me.
Which will be...
I don't know.
You don't know. So you're going to call me back in the estimated time of you don't know. You're not going to call me in a week and say, progress, I'm chasing up on this, Chris.
I can't give you a specific date on it because I don't know when they'll get back to me. I realise you find stuff like that difficult, but there's no point.
I find it unacceptable that I'm not given updates about situations.
When they have got back to me.
When are you going to arrange the assessment? When are you going to arrange the meeting with the rest?
I would recommend that you don't try and arrange the assessment at this point in time.
I'm not arranging it. You arrange it. So that's in a definite hold as well, is what you're saying?
Yes, for probably several months.
Several months. And until then, I can still live in the situation rather than have, say, emergency powers to assist me.
If you want... Okay, a bit confused there. Right, you have a care package which meets your assessed needs.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, fine. It does on paper.
No, it doesn't even on paper, but...
Well, fine.
Their understanding is that it does. It does not.
North Link's view is that you have a care package that meets your needs. No. Full stop. Now, what's the emergency?
My literal situation is becoming more and more unbearable.
Okay,
I cannot live
so
in this literal situation anymore.
You would like your care package changed for that?
I would like the care package to change into various situations here.
Okay, but if I'm going to go and ask for that, I've got to, got to have something to ask for to say what the problem is. And if you want me to do that now, I will do. I would advise against it at this time, but if you want me to, I will do.
I literally need assistance here. I'm not getting it.
Okay, what do you want the assistance for?
Well, emotional, psychological needs. Not in the slightest bit happy with the situation. I need something immediately done about these situations of closure and whatnot. Apparently, you're just not going to address those issues.
If you want me to, I will do. So you want me to go to North Links and say you want your care package reviewed, and the main issues for you are getting closure on the education issue, and also just helping you meet your current deteriorating mental health issues so that you can engage more and have a more active life.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Okay, I will give you a call next week about that and have a think about how I can put that forward. I personally would advise against it, but if you want to do it, that's fine, I'll do it.
Now, why would you advise against that?
Because right now there are very major problems, lots of people dying, and you're not top of the priority list for anybody.
Oh, that's a shame. I mean, I've only been waiting for years for this actual assistance, but I guess I'm perpetually on the bottom of the list for that help.
So people will probably not visit you for your review. They will look at the paperwork and make decisions based on the paperwork they've got.
Which, as I said, is inaccurate.
Okay, well, you can make the point that the paperwork's inaccurate.
I have stated this several times to several different people, and nothing gets done about this.
Okay, well...
Are they under the assumption I'm lying to them?
You need me to do things for you, Chris, don't you, because of your condition?
Yeah.
Right, you can't. Now, part of your condition is that you're, on times, unable to accept other people's points of view.
That's not exactly true.
Well, sounds like it to me.
You did say at times, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, at times it could be difficult for me to understand their perspective if not given the correct amount of information following their opinions. If they don't give adequate reasoning, then I'm not going to just blindly accept their viewpoint.
Okay, well, like I say, I'm going to wait for the sisters to come back to me. I will give you a ring next week. If you want to pursue this straight away, we can do. I say, I think it'd be better to wait till people come and see you and meet you, but it's your call on that one. So I'll give you a call next week and look into drafting a request for a care review. Okay, I'm going to go now. I've got some other things to do this afternoon. So take care of yourself and talk to you next week.
Next week, what day?
I'm not going to give you a day because I don't know what Madara is like, but I will call you next week.
Of course, so I can just randomly wait.
Okay, well, that's as much as
Okay.
I'm probably going to get from you then.
Yeah. Okay, good day then.
Bye.